Hey guys, my name is Lori, and I want to welcome you to my channel, Live, Laugh, and Lori. On this first episode, I've been trying to figure out what would be the best way to explain what my channel is about. And then I had my past adventure this past week. So I thought there is no better way to tell you what this channel is about than to share my most recent adventure. So pull up a chair, grab you something to drink, and let's go ahead and get started. For those of you that don't know who I am, as I said, my name is Lori and I live in southern Arizona. I am a retired school principal, alternative education, and so now I do consulting for another company. I also do other things. I'm a real estate agent. I'm an author, so we'll get into those things at another point. But today, this is really the epitome of what this channel is about. So my most recent adventure, I had to travel about 6 hours away to train teachers on a Native American reservation at a Catholic school. So I'm going to try and keep the names out of this just to give people a little bit of anonymity. But let's say I had to travel from the most southern part of Arizona up to the top and then over to New Mexico. So it is quite an adventure to get there. You drive through a lot of mountains. There's one particular area that has always made me very, very nervous, and it's called Salt River Canyon. And it is a grade of, I'd say, between 6 to 8% most of the way, going all the way down, kind of on a snake road to get to the bottom, and then you have to climb up to the other side. And to get from a decent area on one side to a decent area on the other side is a little over an hour and a half. And the whole trip was about a 6-hour drive. So, I'm not going to throw my husband under the bus, but I will say he doesn't travel well. And so this is an adventure that I've had to do. This is the third time. The first time I had to do it was back in December. And as I said, Salt River Canyon really, really scares me. Because I was going to have to go through the mountains. I was afraid of snow. I haven't really driven, and I've got a small convertible, so it's not really warm. And I haven't really driven through the snow out here in Arizona before, although I am from the Midwest. We've been in Arizona about 13, 14 years, so I'm a little bit out of practice, so I was very nervous. Well, back in December, we had a lot of company coming in, so he wasn't able to go with me. I was quite resentful, I will say, but I went ahead and went and had a wonderful time and came back, but it really made me nervous going through Salt River Canyon. So in February, I had to go back for a few days. So he went with me that time. It was a lovely time. But I will say that he is disabled, and so traveling is not really easy for him. But I had anticipated that he would be going on this most recent adventure with me. But it came to where he ended up scheduling a doctor's appointment, and I thought he had rescheduled it. And so I was a little bit aggravated when I left because he wasn't going to be going with me. And one of my purposes in doing this and traveling with this coaching is that it was something he and I could go and do together. So I was a little miffed when I left, but it was what it was, and I was going to work. So getting there was no problem at all. And then the next day, I went and did what I needed to do at the school. I drove all the way back, and it had started snowing and raining a little bit. And as I was pulling out of the gas station, I realized that I was overheating in my car. And there was no place to pull over, and it was overheating very quickly. I could see the gauge going up when the ding came, my husband calls it an idiot light, but when the little idiot light came on the dashboard, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to hold it. I have to, pull over right now. So I was right by Cracker Barrel, which was right by my hotel. So I coasted into the parking lot, turned it off really quick, got out, popped the hood, looked at things, and I'm not real savvy when it comes to cars. So what do? I called my husband. Well, before I left on this trip, he had made sure that I had a gallon of antifreeze, a gallon of water, I had a wool blanket, I had a coffee can, I had a candle. I had a lighter. I had everything that I thought I would need if by some chance I broke down in the car, just because I'm just that nervous about driving that far through the mountains, and when I say through the mountains, I mean through the mountains in the middle of nowhere with no people around anywhere. So, to say when I pulled in, I was a little bit miffed when I called him, and it was about 6 o'clock at night, and he's like, well, what do you want me to do about it? Well, I wanted him to fix it through the phone, I guess. But he told me the things to check, so I got out and checked it, and he's like, well, I guess you're going to have to take it to a shop. Let me say that I have anxiety. I suffer from anxiety. I suffer from severe anxiety at times, and I do have panic attacks. Well, as he and I are having this conversation, I feel this panic attack coming on, and I can just tell that I'm very, very angry at him because he didn't come with me, and had he been with me, we probably wouldn't have been having this problem, and I wouldn't have gone down this anxiety twirling Tower of Doom. So I get to the point where I can't talk to you anymore. I need to go in and eat. Bye. And so I hang up. And I go in the restaurant and I sit down at Cracker Barrel, and I know my poor waitress, she's got to see my face. She can tell that I've been crying, and it comes up as like, are you okay? Yes. So I order my food, and I'm just kind of like this, crying through the whole thing, but I'm trying to keep myself under control because I have a whole nother day to get through. Plus, I have another 6-hour drive through the mountains to get home. And, I'm in a town that I don't know anything of. So I sit there and I read my book and I eat my dinner. And then I figure by the time I get done, that my car will be cooled down enough that I can drive across the street. So that's what I do. Eventually, I go out, car's cool. I add water to the overflow. And up to the cold line, not the hot line, because he told me everything I needed to do, but I wasn't talking to him yet because I'm still kind of aggravated at him. So I go back to the hotel, and when he had gone with me the last time, he had shown me where there was this place. It was handicap parking, but there were also some other parking places over here where I could pull in, and then when you got out of the car, you could go straight to the side door that was right beside the elevator. So I thought that was great. There were a lot of contractors and things around, and the parking lot was pretty full. So I drove down there. Great parking place. So I pull in, and I'm in between a great big van and a great big panel van. A big white panel van. And so I'm sitting there and I'm pulling all my things together, and suddenly this man starts walking back and forth in front of my vehicle. Now, I don't think at the first 3 or 4 times, but after about the 9th or 10th time, I started getting very nervous. And, I haven't even been up to my room yet. And remember, I've been crying like an idiot. So I'm pulling everything together. And of course, I've not called my husband yet. And this man just keeps walking in front of my car. So I sit there for a really long time, and finally he doesn't go away. So I think, well, I'm just going to have to go park somewhere else because I'm just nervous. I'm a female. I'm by myself. I'm in a city that I don't know. I have a car that's breaking down, and I'm just nervous. So I pull out, go around. Well, there is no other parking place that is any better than where I was because everything else is farther away from the hotel, and there are no lights around. So I go back up, and at least I'm close to the building. So I pull back in. I sat there for a few more minutes, and he starts going back and forth again. I thought, this is absolutely ridiculous. Well, about this time, an older couple, older than me, pulls in a couple cars down farther away from the door, and I thought, oh, people! So as soon as they get out with their suitcases and they start rolling in front of my car, I jump out really quick with my suitcase, and I think they probably think I'm going to be attacking them or something. But I go up behind them, and I say, oh, I'm so glad to see you. I tell them about the man that's been walking back and forth. And they're like, oh, well, you come on in with us. So we go in, and right as we turn the corner to get onto the elevator, there stands this man that has been walking back in front of my car. And he has a cigarette pack in his hand. So I figure he was probably out there smoking, but you know what? I was just a little too nervous, and I was a bit of a basket case. So that is how my evening started. So we go a little farther. I get up. My husband does text me. He doesn't call, but he does text me and tells me to try Pep Boys, I think, because they're still open. So I don't call him back, but I do call Pep Boys. I mean, I call around to see if there's any possibility that someone can get me in. And when the Pep Boy guy answered, I asked if they were still open. He said yes. And I said, is there any possibility you can get me in this evening? You know, my car's overheated. And he just laughs at me. He said, I take it you haven't ever been here before. I'm like, no. Well, I explained it to him. Well, they don't have any openings for a couple of days. So I don't have any idea what I'm going to do. I've called everyone. No one can get me in. So I go up to bed. Of course, I cry myself to sleep. I can't remember if I called my husband or not. I think I probably did before I went to sleep. And then, oh yeah, I did. And he told me just to make sure before I left in the morning to go back to the reservation that I needed to make sure that my overflow was full, you know, refill the gallons and, you know, and then just keep in touch with him during the day. And because I can see a very small leak coming from where it's not the distributor cap, the radiator cap, and then there's a big plastic thing underneath it, and I can see there's a very, very slow drip from that, but, I mean, the overflow tank is not empty, so I don't know what's going on. So, anyway, that night I go to bed, I cry myself to sleep because I just, you know, I'm just a basket case, and then about 4:30 in the morning, I wake up and think, what's that? Because I hear this loud beeping going on. Well, our hotel fire alarm is going off in the middle of the night. And of course, I'm not sleeping in anything. So I jump up and I'm trying to pull some clothes on. And finally, I stick my head out to look around, and everybody else has got their head stuck out in the middle of the hallway. And there are employees running up and down the hallway yelling, everything's okay, there's no fire, we're just trying to figure out why they're going off. And I'm thinking, now wait a minute, you said there's no fire, but you don't know why the fire alarms are going off, but you say there's no fire. So I didn't go back to bed after that because the fire alarm still kept going on for like another 30 minutes. Finally, and of course, I'm going out checking occasionally, and people are still running up and down the fire. There's no fire, there's no fire, go back to bed. And I don't think anybody went back to bed. But anyway, so we get through the night. I drive to work the next day. It overheats a little bit, but I'm able to pull over, pour some water in it. You know, I left early. I let it cool down a little bit, and then I make it onto school, and there's no real issue. So I work till about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's like, okay, it's time to go. So I call my husband and say, okay, I'm getting ready to hit the road. I've refilled my water. I have poured antifreeze into the overflow. I've filled everything up as high as I can fill it, and then I have refilled all of my water. So it's like, I can do this. I take off. So I'm taking off the reservation, and I'm able to make it, I'm going to say 45 minutes to an hour before it really starts going up on me. And I mean, I am in the middle of nowhere, but I come up to a little bitty tiny town. I thought, okay, it's starting to get hot, and it's just at this point, the gauge is really starting to go up. So I pull into this little bitty gas station. I get out, I get me a great big bottle of water to drink, just in case. But then they do have an outside water spigot, and so I refill my things with water after I top everything off for the radiator, and I take off again. About another hour, and I'm getting close to Show Low, and it's kind of snowing a little bit. It's getting kind of rainy, and so I had told my husband that when I got to Show Low, I would see how the car was doing. I would see, what the weather was like, and if the weather was bad, I wasn't going to drive through the canyon in the snow. I would just pick a hotel in Show Low. I would just stay there, and then I would go on. But I got to Show Low. The car was doing okay. Right before I went into the canyon, I thought, you know what? There's a nice place to pull over here. So I pulled over. I topped everything off, checked my fluids. Things were doing okay. So I just pulled over for a little while, got my book out, sat there and read for a while. There was a man that kind of stopped and looked at me kind of funny, kind of like, and I figured he was asking if I was okay. So I said, yeah, I'm fine. And he went on. but at least someone had stopped to see that I was okay. So I really appreciated that. So read for a little while, but it was getting towards the point that if I wanted to be able to get through the canyon before dark, I had to take off. So thought, okay, I can do this. So take off. The car is running fine. I'm out of Show Low. I'm just starting to go down the grade into the canyon, and suddenly my gauge starts going up and it starts getting hot, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Because there is no place to turn around here. And even if I turn around, now I'm past Show Low, I've got to go on. So I just figure as close as I, as far as I get is closer I'm getting to home. But I'm still 3.5 to 4 hours from home. But I go down through the canyon. Well, the car's heating up, so I pull off as soon as I can find a place off that I can pull off far enough that I won't get hit. And I mean, you've got to understand, these roads are snakes, and it's only 2 lanes, and I've always said if there's ever an apocalypse, this is where I'm going to go to, because there's a river down at the bottom, there's caves all over the place, there's wild animals everywhere, and I figured this would be a great place to go hide out, but not a great place to break down. So anyway, as I said, I pull over, I top off all my water, I sit there for a while, I probably wait about 20 minutes until the car completely, I turn the car on, the gauge doesn't go up at all, so I thought, okay, I'm good to go. Still got a little bit of water left in one of my jugs, so off I go. And remember, I'm going downhill right now, and it doesn't take maybe 10 minutes, and again, it starts climbing up. So I'm not going to go through all of the stops, but I had to stop multiple times going down to the bottom. I get all the way to the bottom. I am out of water at this point. The only thing I have left is my one big bottle of water to drink. And I've gone through everything else that I have in the car. And I'm looking down at the river thinking, you know what? There's no river, or there's no water here at this rest stop because it is in the middle of nowhere, but I am right here beside this river. So I could climb down to that river and I could fill my jugs up, but with my luck, because I do tend to be a bit accident prone, but with my luck, I would probably fall in the river, and then they'd find me next year somewhere out in the great beyond. So I decided not to fill it up, and I would just sit there until the car cooled off, and then I would just really go slowly and milk it on the way home. But what I didn't think about was, from this point moving forward, I'm going uphill, which works your engine more. So after sitting there for quite some time and letting the car completely cool down, I take off. I don't even make it, I'd say maybe 2 miles, and I'm overheated again. So I pull off to the side. And I know there's just no way. So again, I sat there for 10 or 15 minutes, let it cool down. I've gotten out in that bottle of water that I had to drink. I've gone out and I put all of it into the radiator at this point and think, okay, maybe this is going to get me a little bit farther. So I wait till it cools off. I take off. I'm heading uphill. I don't even think I make it a mile, and it's overheated again. So I do this 2 or 3 more times, and the last time I can't even get off the road. It is so tight that there's not even a shoulder on the road. So at this point, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I've pulled over as far as I can get. And remember, I had been on this teaching teachers at the reservation. So I am a problem solver. And that's something I very much pride myself on, is that I can solve almost anything if you give me enough time and I can really think about it. So I'm thinking, okay, what do I have in my car that can help me? Well, I remember I just happened to have a roll of duct tape because I needed it to hang posters on the walls. I also have a piece of poster board, and I have markers so I can make a sign. So here is my sign. Let me see if I can back you up just a little bit so you can see it. It says, I need water, help. I did it in red. I colored it in as best that I could. And then on the back, yes, I do have teal colored duct tape. I had my antifreeze bottle so that I could set this on top of my rag top and then have this down the side. And then I had this taped to my car because by now it's pretty well dark. And I'm sitting right on the edge of a curve and coming up behind me and then coming towards me, there's another curve. So my fear is that people are going to come around these corners, and because I'm not off the road very well, they're going to hit me. So I've got this big sign up on the car, and here I sit in the dark. Well, eventually a man stops. And he gets out, and and I roll my window down, and I said, and he's like, "What do you need?" I said, "I desperately need water. I'm overheated." I said, "I will buy water from you." I said, "All I've got is $5." He said, "Okay, I'll give you everything." He said, "I'll give you some water." So I give him my $5 bill, and he walks back to his car, and he gets me one bottle of water, just a little bottle of water, and brings it back and says, "Here you go." Jumps in his car, and he leaves. He charged me $5 for one little bitty bottle of water. But you know what? At that point, I didn't have any water. So I'm not going to complain. Although, okay, had it been me, I would have just given it to somebody. Or I'd have given him $5 worth of water. But either way, beggars can't be choosers. So he left. But he didn't say, "Hey, can I call anyone for you? Can I get the state police?" Nothing. He just left. So here I am, 58-year-old woman stuck on the side of the road for hours. And I mean, we are talking hours. I have sat there, and my poor husband, I've been texting him through all of this. And I will say at first I was very, very angry with him. No, it wasn't his fault, but in my brain, if he had been with me, we would not have been going through the issues. He wouldn't have let me go down into the canyon. He would have fixed it before we went down in the canyon. We would have stayed in a hotel. Something would have happened, and I would not have been stuck on the side of the road, ended up about 4.5 hours by myself in the middle of nowhere. And when I say in the middle of nowhere, I'm going to try and find a picture of the area, and I'll try and stick it up here just so you know. But if not, you might just want to Google Salt River Canyon, and I'm at the bottom in the middle, in the dark. And I'm not just saying it's dark. It's foggy. There's light snow and rain. There are no stars. There is no moon. There are no street lights. There is no civilization. Nothing. And here I sit in my ragtop convertible, not quite off the road, for hours. Now, one of the other things that I was worried about was that I needed to have my hazards on because it was dark outside. And here I sat, not quite off the road. But I was afraid that if I sat there too long, then my battery would go dead, and then my hazards wouldn't work, and I would probably get hit. So what I did is I sat there with my finger on the button of the hazard light, because if I took my finger down because it was dark, I couldn't find the button again. So I turned the car enough to where I could put my finger on it, then I turned the key off. And I will say that one time I did that, and I put my finger on the button, and then I took my finger off to turn the car off. But then I could get it back up there. But anyway, so I sat with my finger on the hazard button, and when I could see either in my rear view mirror or up the street, I could see that there was headlights coming, I would quick hit my finger, but of course I had to keep my finger on the button so I didn't lose where it was. And then once I'd pass, I'd push the button again and turn it back off. So here I sat in my car for hours in the dark with my finger on the button, pushing it on and off. And here I sit for hours. Well, you know what you have to do when you sit there for hours? You have to pee. I held it as long as I possibly could. And I thought, I just cannot hold it any longer than this. And I have never in my life had to pee outside. I know there are people that do it all the time. I know that I think I did it vacationing, but we had like a bucket and there was a toilet seat on the top. But no, I've got to go. So I'm looking around. Well, I am up against like these, I'm going to call them guardrails, but they were more like concrete. So the concrete is here beside me, and I thought, I just have to. So I go out, I squat between, and okay, I know you're supposed to hook your arm between your pants to keep it where you don't pee in your pants, because I can't see anything because it's completely dark. I squat down between these two concrete things on the side of the road, and I thought, okay, well, I have to go. And I mean, I have to pee like a racehorse. And I go, 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 and I go. And I thought, oh my gosh, finally I'm done. Well, as I said, I'm a 58-year-old woman, and my body parts don't work real great anymore. And so when I go to stand up, my right knee locks and falls forward, and I fall backwards. But remember when I said I couldn't see? What I don't realize is I'm right on the edge of this. My daughter says I fell down a mountain. I fell down a hill. At the time, it felt like it was about 30 or 40 feet. It was probably closer to 10. But here I am. I fall forward, catch myself, lean back, and I just keep leaning back, and I slide down a hill behind me with my pants around my ankles all the way to the bottom of the hill. Luckily, there was no one around to see me. So once I get my faculties back, and I'm scratched up and a little bruised, but it's not bad. I have to get back up the hill, which I am able to do. So luckily, I'm not down there with my pants around my ankles with a broken leg or something. I mean, I am fine. So I do get my pants up. I climb back up the hill. Eventually, a young man comes running down the hill, and he's got a bottle of water, and I explained to him what's going on, and I had seen his mother had stopped at that point, and she turned around and came back, and I have everything written out, my husband's name, his phone number, mile marker 290, and they have one bottle of water, but they said, we will make sure someone comes to help you. We'll call your husband, we'll call the state patrol, whatever we need to, but we will make sure someone comes back and helps you. So people, if you are watching this and you were my salvation that night, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. In my opinion, you saved my life. I know it wasn't that dire, but to me, you saved my life by stopping and helping me. This young man, when I told him the last guy, I offered to pay him. I said, but the last man, I gave him my $5 and he gave me the one bottle. Well, this young man's trying to give me money. And I said, no, I don't need your money. I need your water. I don't need your money. But what I really need is for you to call my husband. And so these wonderful people they called the highway patrol. I don't know who they got in touch with. I can't even tell you who came. But it was probably another hour and a half at this point before the police officer got there. And I will say that me falling down the hill with my pants around my ankles was actually after they first stopped, and I just couldn't wait any longer, and I was hoping that I would be back up the hill before the police got there. And well, yeah, it was forever before they got there, but still, they showed up, and the wonderful officer, he asked me if I wanted to call my husband. I said, well, I'd wanted to do that, but I didn't have cell phone service. He said, I got a sat phone. So he let me call my husband, and I was able to let him know, where I was, that I was okay, that we would meet in Globe. So that's the humorous, the humorous part of it. But I want to get to the serious part. And I know this is going really long, and if you have stayed with me this long, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. But this is the learning point of what was my journey down the mountain. Remember I said I was really, really angry at my husband. Well, the longer I sat there, I started arguing with God. If you know me, you know about our life. We've had a lot of tragedies in our our family. That's one of the things that this channel will explore is, we've lost 2 of our children. My husband broke his neck. We lost everything. We lost our business. We lost our home. But there has been a lot of joy in my life. And what makes me be able to move forward and not get so down is that I do try and look at the positives. But I will tell you, in the bottom of that canyon, I was angry. I was angry at my husband. I was angry at God. It's like, what did I do to deserve this? I have never been so absolutely terrified in my life as I was at the bottom of that canyon, because I got to realizing just how small and insignificant I am in the big picture of the world. I mean, I literally was in the middle of nowhere. There are bobcats, there's, cougars, there's bears, there's all kinds of wild animals, and I'm in the middle of an Apache reservation, and all I can think of is these animals are going to come and they're going to be hungry, or I'm going to freeze to death because my rag top doesn't keep the car warm enough to keep it warm. But God, why did you do this to me? I don't have the strength of Job. Why are you having things like this happen to me? I don't deserve this. And after I've argued with God, and I've prayed, and I've begged, I've pleaded, you get to a point that I've realized there's nothing else that I can do. I've put my sign up no one has stopped when I was at this point. And as I said, I had been texting my husband, and I knew that they weren't getting through because I had no cell service, but to make myself feel better, I just texted him. And then it got to the point that I may never see him again. And suddenly, you know what? I wasn't mad at him anymore. Because what I realized is I had been mad at him since December when he didn't go with me. And I had been holding a grudge because he didn't go with me in December. And here I was at the bottom of this canyon, which is what I had been afraid of the whole time. But when push comes to shove, it didn't matter, because he needed to know how much I loved him. And what I texted him was I'd do it all again. And I would have. But at that point, when I was at my absolute lowest, and I was absolutely terrified, what was important just surfaced. I wasn't mad anymore. I just needed him to know how much I loved him, and then I forgave him. He didn't even know I was mad at him. But I did tell him once I did get to see him. But I will tell you, there have been times that I've not felt safe in my life, and there have been times that I have been scared. But at the bottom of that completely dark, isolated canyon, I felt complete terror. I didn't know if I was going to be eaten by animals. I'm lucky I didn't roll down a cliff and break my leg. I just knew that there was a possibility that I might not make it out of this alive. And if I didn't, how was I leaving things? So again, I prayed and I asked for forgiveness. But in my heart, I made sure that everything was okay. And then when he let me call my husband, I was so glad. And he's like, I'm on my way. But he's still 2.5 hours away, and he's driving, and I know he's driving crazy, but the police officer, and I will say, it's the only time I have ever ridden in the back of a police car, and it wasn't a car, it was some kind of a small SUV, and it's all plastic, and I got my suitcase, everything that I can think of that I'm going to have because my car's broken down. So I've got my suitcase beside me. Well, there's not a seatbelt. There's not a poo bar to hold on to. I keep reaching out because I've got the thing separating me from the the officer, so I reach up to grab it. Well, there's glass there, so I can't even grab a hold of this. I know he's not driving 100 miles an hour, but it feels like it on this S road, and I know he knows it really well, but I am just sliding all over the back seat. It's only about this deep, so my knees are like up underneath my chin, but you know what? He got me to Denny's. And it was a place that I knew would still be open. And that's where we told my husband to meet me. So I walk into Denny's and I walk up to the counter, and, you know, everybody can see that I'm climbing out of the back of a police car. I walk up to the counter with my suitcase and I say, I just need you to put me someplace. I'm going to be here for a while. And I said, just put me someplace in the corner. And she said, oh, I'm sorry. We close in an hour. I'm like, oh no. But you know, whatever. So I go into my corner at Denny's, and then the officer comes back in. He's forgotten to take down my information. So, but everyone sees this officer come in and stand and talk to me for a while before he leaves. And I'm ready to cry. I mean, I'm ready to start sobbing into my food, because everyone's staring at me, and I feel safe at this point because I'm with human beings. But yet I'm not, because I'm still without. I still don't know what I'm going to do. So I texted some of my family and told them about my adventure. And but when it hit 10 o'clock and I walked to the front, the doors were locked, the chairs were on the tables, and I looked out the door and there stood my husband. I have never been so glad to see anyone in my whole entire life. And never been so thankful for someone in my life. But this is my life. This is my channel. The way I get through things is I find the humor. I use everything as a learning experience. I now know that I will always take at least a case of water in my car if I'm going anywhere. I will say it was another 50 miles to Globe. To get my car fixed was about $600, and there was about a $350 tow bill. So $1,000, lesson learned, but I'm home, I'm safe, and I have to go back again next month. But guess who is not going by themselves? So welcome to my channel. There will be laughter, there will be stories, there will be hauls from different stores, there will be a little bit of everything. But I will tell you, there will be a lot of laughter and a lot of learning. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to know when I have other things come out, please give me a thumbs up. I'll know that you like this, and subscribe. I would love to have you subscribe so that I can let you know when I have other things coming out. So thank you so much for joining me today. Have a blessed day. Bye-bye.